I bet you have been wondering what is the difference between those functions when you first started working with blueprints. The ones on the left need you to connect execution flow to run them, but the one on the right, the length function, magically returns value without it. Some of you may already have an idea what's going on, but many of you probably just accepted the fact that some functions work a little bit different, maybe to make your already convoluted blueprint slightly less messy by not having to wire all of those little utility functions like length together. When you are creating your very first blueprints, it is fine to just take it as it is without thinking too much, but at some point you should finally learn the difference because it can affect your performance a lot. It's going to be a huge performance drawback for those of you who are working with runtime stuff, like game logic or some blueprints in the game, but it is still very important for those of you who are making tools, especially the ones that are using some timers and running a few times a second, but also when you are patching a large number of files where running pure functions in some cases may double, triple, or even make your execution time 10 times longer. So let me slowly take you to the journey and explain everything. When we have those getSelected actors or asset functions, it's quite clear that they are going to be different than this length function, and when we see the difference, we just accept it. But if we go a bit lower in my blueprint graph, we'll find two functions that are basically the same, but they are still different. They are named the same, it just gets some path and gets some path with this pure suffix, and they both return the string. If we go into the first one, we have some print that we can ignore for now, and we just do simple string operation and return the string. But then we can get into the other function and we will realize that they are the same, but for some reason they are not. So what you are seeing on the left side is a so-called impure function, and on the right side you have the pure one. If you are having some utilities like returning length of an array, it's great. It means less spaghetti in your blueprints because you don't have to connect this execution flow, right? So if you are creating your functions and you think this may come handy, the only thing you need to change is details of your function. That's the only difference. So if you select your function, you can just disable pure and we are back to the normal. But if you want to use the pure, just toggle it and it's done. So is that it? Is there any performance issue, as I said? How does it really behave? So now it's time to demonstrate you. I have two simple examples and we no longer need this detail panel, so let's remove it. In both examples, we get our path by executing the function just once, or let's say once, and then we print it. So the first example is going to behave exactly as you expect. We could connect it to my event, and as soon as I hit save, compile, it is becoming available as a scripted asset action. We can go to our viewport, select some asset. In my case, it's just the blueprint I'm using to test. Then go to scripted asset actions, test pure function, and here on the left corner, we have seen some log, and if it disappeared, just go to output log. And we have getting path executed, and then this path is printed 3 times. So of course, this getting path is coming from my function, from this print, and let's see if there is going to be any difference if we use a pure function instead of the regular one. So compile, save, and let's try again. And we are testing it, and looks like each time we were going to print something, this print inside my function was triggered again. And that simply means that each time I'm referring to a pure function, it is being executed again. And it may be great for some of you, because if you are just looping over some assets in a for each loop and you are assigning random values and you are executing such function, you are guaranteed to always have a different value. Let's say guaranteed, because this is probably a pseudo-random, but this is still better than nothing. On the other hand, from performance point of view, this may be really troublesome. If you are executing something in a loop during the gameplay, it is going to be evaluated every time. However, my tutorials mostly focus on making tools and some automations, so you may say that it's not that important, right? You're not running something 30 times a second, are you? So let's say we have a function like query file state, because I'm doing something with assets and I may need to maybe convert version control system path to my Windows file system path, or maybe I want to query and see if this file is used by any other user to see if I can edit it, or maybe not. Maybe I want to add it to my change list and submit, so I have to do more queries. And those usually are slow, and I mean really slow. Sometimes if server is hanging, a single call can be seconds, but if it's not, it is usually fine until you call it in a loop. So most of the time when we do simple functions that don't seem like harmful, like get some path, there might be something referring to version control system under the hood. And what is more, there could be just simple file system operations, or maybe some call to the server in some cases. And that's going to cause a huge slowdown. So you may want to use an impure function instead, but very often it is not possible. So what could you do in that case? Let's say we have a very simple example. We have some array of 3 elements. You don't need to know what's inside. I have just numbers, but this could be a list of assets, all right? Or actors. Then you are looping and you are doing something with them. Maybe we are checking their path in version control system and, I don't know, checking which version we have, displaying it to the user, asking if he wants to get the latest one. Or something else. As long as we are executing it each time on a different asset, it is fine. But if we are getting path to our workspace root, we could do it just once, right? We don't have to do it 30 times. So in that case, you can just create some variable and cache the value. If you are in the main graph, you have to use this variable tab. But if you are in the function, feel free to use a local variable. So let's make example one. Let's call it cached path. Change it to string. And we can set it first before using. So this function here is no longer needed. Let's connect it, to our loop. And then instead of calling this function, we would just get the cached value, and that's it. And I don't know, if execution time would be perhaps half a second on those 3 assets, we just saved 1 second. I know it's not much for you if you are batching, at least if you are batching small amounts of files, but if you are checking if maybe a selection in content browser changed and then updating the data in your details panel, then yeah, it's going to make a huge difference. So that's it. The very first part was probably some revelation to those of you who didn't know what are the pure and impure functions. The second part of the tutorial could have been totally obvious to some of you, but keep in mind that my viewers are on different levels. Some just started using blueprints. Some are switching from other programming languages. Maybe they didn't use the visual ones, they used Python or C++. And I wanted this video to be suitable for everyone. If you like my content, you can subscribe, share it. If you want to deep more into the blueprints, check out my course on the Udemy. And that's it. See ya.